Hi, my name is Isabelle Ska, registered massage therapist for 16 years now, as well as intuitive energy practitioner. This is just a small introduction for the segment that is coming up, which is about intuitive energy work. If ever you're interested in the full conversation that I had with former colleague of mine, Marian Sears-Carter, physiotherapist, you'll be able to find the link in the description of this video, where we also discuss about craniosacral therapy and myofascial release, as well as remote sessions. So without further waiting, here's the segment on intuitive energy work. Because, there's also a part that is your personal journey also, as far as, yes, as a therapist, but then there's your personal journey. When I started also, when I was working at the beginning, I had an injury, neck
Mm-hmm.
injury. All to say, I had that injury, and when I was working, I would feel it as
Mm-hmm.
I was working, which was not, not the best. And so I was in pain. And trying a different thing. And at one point, I actually I was doing an exchange with another former colleague that we had, Jude. Uh,
Mm.
and she, as she was treating my neck, doing massage at one point, because she was doing the technique that is called EFT, meridian tapping, emotional freedom release. And she was like, she was giving me a massage, but then she said, well, hey, I feel that there's something more, that there's more. I was like, and at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm open
Go
to,
for
yeah,
it.
anything, because I'm tired of feeling this pain when I'm working.
Right.
So yeah, whatever works, I'm open to it.
I'm in. Yes, exactly.
So yeah, I had that session with her, which is,
Mhm.
you're tapping on some meridian points and you're releasing emotion. Well, bottom line, to realize that there was, I cried like a baby on the table, because realizing there was actually a lot of anger and um,
Yeah.
so many other emotion. But when you just think about it, and when you think about anger, or when you think about how that feel in your body
Yeah.
when you're feeling it. And most people we don't take the time to just stop and like, oh, how am I feeling? Well, but then, when I was thinking of how everything, because it was all related, it was not just the injury itself, it was bigger. There was a lot of other things
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
were not beautiful, which was ugly anyway. So there
Mm-hmm.
was anger related to all that situation. Um, and mistrust, and in a way. And so then when you think about that, all muscle are attached to bones.
Mm-hmm.
um when I was thinking about the situation, I was in pain, so then, it was a vicious circle. So when I was working, I was feeling the pain, I would be thinking about the thing, which, would make me even more angry, which, what happened in the body? Well, you're tensing up. And though, so what does that do? So in my case, it was tensing up even more those muscle, which were pulling even more on those vertebrae, which making
Exactly.
more pain. So, which is just, I'm just saying this to give an idea of how these things can have an impact on us without often realizing that it has an
Yeah.
impact. And
Right.
so that was one technique that I don't do, but that helped me
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
release. And all to say that this is a technique, there's so many other techniques, but energy work and cranial will help with that, to
Yeah.
assist the person to release, because that's the thing, we facilitate
Yeah. Yeah.
so that they can
Yeah. It's
release.
a lot of the times, yeah, and I'm sure you've had this experience as well, where you're working on let's say someone's shoulder, and you just know this is not really physical. There's something here. They're holding something here. And if it's, if it's someone you can, mention that to, once they realize what it is, oh my goodness, the thing takes care of itself immediately. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I had that fight with my daughter, and it's been giving me pain ever since. And then sometimes they just go on their whole little SCR, unwind on their own. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's right. I have been holding on too hard. Oh yeah, she wants to move out. Oh, I've been worried about it. And then they start to list all these things that in fact are emotional, that are, coordinated in time with this shoulder thing. And then poof, literally by the time you end the session, they're like, oh my God, the shoulder is fine. That's what that was. It was that whole event, right? And once it comes into their awareness, well, okay, the body doesn't need to hold it anymore, right? Because the body is very protective of us. The body will, if we're not ready to face something, it'll lock it down. If it's not ready to go there, or it feels that's too far, into something new, it'll hold it. But once you can release these things you're holding, which if you've been holding them for 20 years, they're not even an issue anymore. Something I was holding 20 years ago may have seemed really important then, but irrelevant now, right?
Yeah.
So, but the body is still taking up resources and energy and fascial tightness holding this thing. So when you can prompt them to go into that emotional part, my God, the physical healing is phenomenal and quick, really quick.
Quick. And that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic.
In my example, I like it was like night and day after that session.
There you go. Yeah,
Pain in my neck was
yeah,
like
yeah,
something now I still, I will feel a tiny bit of tension, but it's so rare. Has
exactly.
nothing to do.
And it's only actual physical tension. It's not
Yes.
tied into some long-standing whatever. And it's not
Yes.
always long-standing. I mean, some things the body are holding on to for 20 years or 40 years or since childhood, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just that bad conversation you had with the boss, or whatever, the boyfriend saying something that struck you. Ooh, and the body clenches, right? Because I find the other thing that the body does is it associates. Somebody says something, it becomes a trigger simply because 10 years ago somebody also said something like that, or 5 years ago, and then these things, these like things stick together, and goes into the body. So sometimes when you start to unwind these things, there's so much there. It's not just one incident. It's that high school teacher who made me feel bad, and then it was that my first boss who made me feel bad, and then my sister said something yesterday, and all these three things, because they're similar, are all just tied up in a knot, right? And once you realize, oh, that, okay, I don't need to hold that in my shoulder. Whatever, I'll deal with that up here, or I'll call my sister or whatever. And
Yeah.
now I know what it is. So I
Yeah.
don't have to have it in my body anymore. So
Yeah.
free, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I love somatic emotional work. I could do this from morning till night. Right? Because it's so quick, it's so good, and the person is deeply changed, right? Deeply changed because they realize, oh my God, you know what? I've been holding on to that for how long? And now it's not even important. Who cares? Right? I don't need to, tie up real estate in my body, holding on to some foolishness that was somebody else's issue, right? Not yours.
And sometimes it is yours, but
Well, sometimes it is yours, but at least now you know.
exactly. And you can let go of it and you can
Yeah,
just say, well,
yeah,
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 that's not,
yeah. Or
that's
just admit, yeah, that really upset me. That was really hurtful. Because a lot of times we don't even want to admit that we're hurt by something. Oh, I'm fine, I'm fine. Right? Whereas meanwhile, you know what? I'm so not fine. And now I'm going to lock it into my low back or my neck.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We're complicated. Humans are very complicated,
but fascinating.
but fascinating. Yes. And can change like this.
Yeah. Because at the same time, it's like that's also then you realize also at one point that okay, yes, this thing might have hurt me, or uh, but that doesn't define me. And
Oh.
yeah, so let's release that because yeah,
Mhm.
You don't know what
Mhm.
you're saying to, but we
Mhm.
have to be ready for it.
Yeah.
We have to be ready to release. And that's a
Right. Yeah.
part. Also, I would say,
Oh,
as far as those kind of, when you come to, I don't have to say that if somebody's coming for, because that's all you do now, craniosacral. So somebody that comes to you, either they heard about you and or they're looking for something different. And the same thing, that's why also, yes, I am a massage therapist and I still do so. For whoever's listening, they have insurance.
Mhm.
Of course, I can do the typical,
Yeah.
but I also integrate, energy work to it because it is so efficient and cranial is efficient. And I would say, and of course, I've had it through that, a couple of years ago. You know, that's where also personally, yes, I have Reiki one, but I have to say that I don't do the typical energy work. When I say uh, intuitive energy work, at one point, and as you know, because I've worked on you with that, is that my gut feeling was that I needed to start working along the spine. So that's how the intuitive work started. And it just, and I think, and it evolved because also it's, yes, I was working along the spine, I was feeling different, but it was very, very subtle. And, what's funny that my hands would be like landing in some areas that were, always very specific, but my gut feeling was like, okay, well, yeah, I need to have Marian on the table to
Yay.
confirm me what she's feeling and what I'm feeling. And then
Yeah.
at one point also there was another colleague of us that was an acupuncturist that came into the room.
Mhm.
To,
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
gut feeling was also that okay, there's some point when I'm landing on, I feel that and I've never studied acupuncture, and my gut feeling was that okay, my fingers are landing on some meridian
A
point.
point. Yeah. Hmm.
And then sometime, the more it evolved, because, through, weeks and months and years, it has evolved. And, it's not what it was from when it started with
Of course.
you. Uh, but back, coming back also, that therapist that is in acupuncture had confirmed to about 80% were
Yeah.
actually meridian points. And also, like maybe 2 months ago, I had an acupuncturist on my table, and
Ah,
she
good.
was receiving, and she was like, "Oh, you're working on my gallbladder meridian now. Oh, working on that one." I was like, "Well, I guess I am."
Uh,
But of course, yes, my fingers were landing on some area, and sometimes they're on meridian, sometimes they're on chakras, which are, for those that are, if some are not aware of those, they're like energy centers in your body.
mhm. Mhm.
Very global way of explaining it, but
Right. But you touch on something important there, Isabel, because I feel like for most of us therapists who've been working a long time, when you take many courses in different, different focuses, there's that period, and I'm sure you know this, when you take a course, a new course, something, different, and then there's that little period of integration when you go back to work, and you're like, okay, I had this body of knowledge, and now I've learned, this other thing. How do I? And there's maybe a week where you're a little off balance. You're trying to integrate. But I mean, that is the beauty of having so many therapies at your fingertips, is because it's seamless. Yeah, you could be on an acupuncture meridian. Yes, you could be on an area that's being held that's emotional. Yes, you could be working on specific fascial tissue. Yes, you could be giving a massage to these traps, whatever. It's all of it. I mean, that's the genius, isn't it?
yeah,
That's the genius. You don't have to, well, I've come for a massage and I'm going to stick to that. You're sensing, your hands are sensing, you are deeply into the physical body and to the energy field, and you can deal with whatever needs dealing with. You don't have to choose. you can treat it all.
yes,
It's
exactly.
so It's so rich.
Yes. And I think it's, and to trust, because that's one thing also, because, I think any skills that somebody have,
Yeah.
and as you're saying, at one point, it's like when you get to the level, you really integrate them. But also, I think at one point you need to, um, okay, I've learned all those things, which is amazing. And yes, there's a theory behind all of that of what it can do and what it can, but and then there's that one point also where, because that was that for me also, is when I started, intuitively that I needed to work along the spine, that specific technique, that it was about trusting.
Yeah.
Because you have, that's the thing, we have all those amazing modalities that we learn.
Mhm.
And at one point, you have to get to, okay, now I'm just going to trust and let the body show me.
Exactly.
And I'm just going to go where it's calling me
Or
to
I'm
go
led. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
follow it. And
Hmm.
that's where, as you're saying, then okay, yes, maybe I could be doing this. And that's the thing, that's the beauty, is that it all get integrates in one, two, because you just trust and you just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. And when you can trust, you get the feedback, right? Because sometimes you drift off somewhere and then the person says, "Oh my gosh, I meant to tell you that. That's been really sore for the last 4 days." They never told you. But if you trust that that is where you are drawn to and that's where you need to work, then they give you the feedback often that makes you go, ah, okay, well, that's why I wandered off there. It's kind of nice, right? To get that, get that feedback. It builds your confidence. But again, they're getting more work done than they expected, right? Because you dealt with some other thing as well, which
yeah,
is amazing, right? Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
that trust, and it's so true also, is that also that trust, yes, comes from,
Hmm.
the experience that we have, but also it comes from those feedback, as you're
Yeah,
mentioning,
yeah,
from clients and from
exactly.
amazing colleagues that feels that
Yeah,
are giving
yeah,
you, are confirming
yeah,
what you're feeling. And
exactly.
and that was one thing also. I remember one time, I was seeing this client for the first time, and he was coming for a craniosacral.
Okay.
And I remember, how you were telling me same thing, when I was working, you work at the cranial base and you can feel a lot of thing, all that tension going along the dura and, feeling along the spine. And yes, you can feel, and you were the one also telling me, oh yeah, well, you were the first also giving me some feedback of what I was feeling. Oh yes, now you're, what I can feel it, that, you're around T4, T5, whatever, and all that.
Yeah,
So along the spine, that, from the cranial base, you can feel where there's some restriction going on, and you can,
exactly.
spending a little bit of time there, you can release it. But I remember also that person, which is great. That's the thing, beauty of having feedback from clients, because that it makes you grow, it makes you trust even more in what you're doing and more confident.
Yeah.
And that person, I remember, so there I was, working there and going along, feeling it. And for some odd reason, I just saying this because that's time with that person, my eyes were actually, they were open, but I wasn't, I was feeling, but my eyes were open.
Hmm.
It started saying, "Oh, you're now on my left knee." I was like, "What?"
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And it kept working. Still, there I was at the cranial base, at base at the skull. And I went back, "Oh, okay, now you're at, down on my left big toe, blah, blah, blah." And so every single time, he told me all these feedback, and he kept telling me. And then, at the beginning, I was like, "What the hell are you talking about,
Yeah,
dude?
exactly.
I don't
Yeah,
know what you're
yeah.
talking about. I'm along the spine. I don't." But then is where I realized, the more he was telling me these things, this is
Yeah.
when I realized that second before he would tell me, my eyes would have gone.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's incredible. Really?
Without even having realizing that
Wow.
up until he mentioned it.
Right, 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 right.
Because every time I was like, that's when after a couple of them, that's when I realized, like, holy, my eyes went there.
Yeah, yeah. Incredible. Wow, that's
So
a good
I
story.
was saying, yeah, so what's how connected we are and how we feel these things. And then, yeah,
Mhm.
amazing work. It's
It's
amazing.
amazing work. That's why we're doing it. That's why we're loving it. Right? That's why we're
Yeah,
having a chat.